Give it a shock? How's that? All right. I'm just ringing the bell to call our meeting to order. You can remain seated at this time. And I heard some feedback from a table back there, John Cooper, I think it was. But class is in session. And by the way, please return your trays to the proper collection point after finishing your meal before you leave class. All right. Our greeters today, Drew Harris. Where's Drew? He's way in the back. He's just now finishing up his duties, getting some food. And Tom Frula, also doing the same. Thank you. Before I forget, this was given to me. No, it wasn't given to me, but it was given to me to ask you, probably the ladies in the room, if you lost looks like a multi-diamond brooch worth thousands and thousands of dollars. Bob Gerst, okay, yeah. He sees an opportunity, I can see, okay. We think it was left at the auction. Anybody missing this valuable piece of jewelry? Okay. I think we will start with our music today. Andy Webb, if I see, whoops, excuse me. I got my phone on. I guess if I have my phone on in class, I get reprimanded, right?
You do.
Okay.
Thank you, President Fairbrooks. Good morning, fellow Rotarians. Today we'd like to share in our music portion an exceptional piece from Yakima School District. Our music programs in the Yakima School Districts have many accomplishments, and we're very, very proud of them. Today we'd like to share an excerpt from A.C. Davis's performance at the NWAPA Music and Motion Competition in Everett this past fall. The A.C. Davis Band took first place in this competition. They also won High Color, High Music, and High Visuals. We deeply appreciate all of the support from our community, especially in passing levies, as this is how we are able to support our music programs and all of our amazing students in those programs in the Yakima School District. Please enjoy this presentation from this championship performance from the A.C. Davis Music and Marching Band.
You know, that was an amazing performance by a high school band. I went to Eisenhower Davis game this year, and I guess Eisenhower was the home team, so they were able to perform at halftime, and I was impressed with their performance. And then Davis got to perform after the end of the game, which was unfortunate because most of the people had left. But I stayed, and they were pretty awesome. And to put this together is amazing to me. They run around and then they play instruments. I don't know how they do that. But Rick Pinnell? So one of the Ricks is going to give an invocation.
Both the Ricks are 12 years in Yakima School District.
That's right.
A wise woman who was traveling in the mountains found a precious stone in a stream. The next day she met another traveler who was hungry, and the wise woman opened her bag to share her food. The hungry traveler saw a precious stone and asked the woman to give it to him. She did so without hesitation. The traveler left, rejoicing in his good fortune. He knew that stone was worth enough to give him security for life. But a few days later, he returned back to the wise woman. "I've been thinking," he said. "I know how valuable this stone is, but I give it back to you in the hope that you will give me something even more precious. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give this stone to me." Let us pray. Dear Lord, each of us has been blessed with many stones in our lives that are like our skills, our time, and our passions. Help us to reflect, to recognize these stones. God gave us these blessings not to be used just for ourselves. He asks us to share these gifts with our fellow man. By sharing, we will be even more blessed. Lord, today I ask you to watch over our President Rick. He's a great example of sharing his wisdom and God-given talents. Bless him for all he is doing for us and our community. Amen.
Hey, Rick, did you take something of mine? I didn't realize how important that prayer was at the end, providing me assistance as he steals my agenda away from me. Very good. Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome the guests today that we have, and I think we have quite a few. So would you stand and show yourself to us so we can acknowledge your presence, and thank you for coming. Thank you. I think I mentioned last week that there's going to be an Imagine Rotary survey coming out. I don't think it is out yet, but please watch your email inbox for that survey and take the time to read through the questions and answer them honestly and provide input and opinion, because that's what we're looking for as we try to maintain and improve our Rotary Club business. And we had a program, I think was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, about Perry Tech. And some members approached me and said, "Boy, we'd like to have a tour." So I talked to Tressa Shockley, who works at Perry Tech, and she said, "Sure, we can arrange that." So there is a scheduled Rotary tour for Perry Tech on February 15th from 12 to 1 during the noon hour. So I think it'll be fascinating to take a tour through the facility. It's changed a lot over the years. It's been upgraded. It has it sounds like an amazing instrumentation program, the automotive. I have to take the tour to find out what else they're doing there, but it's a pretty amazing operation, I think, and Yakima's lucky to have it. So the tour, February 15th, put it on your calendar, 12 to 1 if you can make it. This last week, or on Monday, that's this week, was the MLK Peace March. We had a nice representation from our club, walking on a beautiful day with the sun out, and it was a nice walk. We had a banner, a Rotary banner, leading the way, and it was just a great moment to spend with the others on that day. We ended up at the convention center for some awards and some speeches, and I just want to announce that the Rotary Food Bank was awarded the Spirit of the Dream Award. And Pete Bansmer was there to accept the award, and if you don't know, Pete Bansmer is very much involved in the operation of that food bank and puts in a lot of hours and a lot of effort. So we thank Pete for his efforts and his work, and for Rotary's contribution to the food bank. Anthony Peterson, one of our members, I don't know if Anthony is here today, I don't see him, but he was the main speaker there. I thought did a great job, very eloquent, and just proud that Anthony, as a Rotarian, was up there representing us as well as the community. I'm going to do, it looks like we have a couple minutes, so as you know, I have somewhat frequently had a moment where we can all sit around the table and talk about a subject, and today, with school being the main subject, I'd like you to turn to somebody next to you and talk about who was your favorite teacher in school. So you have a minute to make that decision and have that conversation. So choose your partner and talk about who your favorite teacher was and why. All right, I hope you've all had a chance to talk about your favorite teacher and why. Oh, no, I'm just... well, maybe. Be ready. I'm gonna start off because well, I did have somebody to talk to. I talked to Trevor Green. I had a history teacher in high school. His name was Mr. Zylstra, and he spoke with a Russian. I thought it was a Russian accent at the time. Anybody else have Mr. Zylstra for history? Oh my golly, look at him. But he was my favorite because he was so colorful, and his voice was so strong, and the accent was strong, and the pointer that he carried around and whacked on my desk was pretty strong. And he sang, you know, when he wanted to make a point about something in history, he would sing a song that corresponded with it. And I just remember him to this day very fondly. Always, you couldn't fall asleep in his class. I mean, you had to listen. Okay, anybody else out there have a great teacher they want to talk about? Got a couple minutes. Mike, come on. Stand up and speak. Got a microphone coming?
We had him present last year, Dan Peters. Well, he was a new teacher at West Valley High School. I want to say it was my junior year, and I can't nail why, but for whatever reason, he's the only teacher that I can remember that my thought shifted from I have to do this or I'm doing this because I need to check a box to move on, whatever it is, to I don't want to let him down. He somehow changed something in my head to where I wanted to do well because he expected me to do well and knew what I was capable of. And if I didn't meet that, I felt like I let him down. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I needed to have him too. Anybody else? Thank you. Hi, looks like, where we go? Robert Trimble? All right, Robert.
Well, anyway, my favorite teacher going through high school was Mrs. Brown. I went to Luther Johnson Price High School. The reason why Mrs. Brown has been with me all of these years is she never put me down. I was a stutter when I was going through school, and she never put me down, and she always encouraged me and said that I was going to be a great speaker, which I am not. But I just have her close to my heart because here I am now. I can at least get to an end of a sentence without stuttering. So
I think you
Mrs.
do
Brown.
quite well, Robert. Thank you. Pretty awesome. One more. Oh, Nancy Leahy's got her hand up. Oh, this ought to be colorful, I'm sure.
Well, it's probably no surprise. My favorite teacher was my drama coach in high school. Lake Oswego High School, Jack Lee Powell. And he was an excellent coach of the musical comedy productions to the point where we were the Oregon Thespian Convention production in one year. And the following year, national, they got to go back to Indiana. But he made everybody feel so important with that production. Every person, even our curtain crew, he would look at them and say, if one curtain is late, but every voice is on key and every line's perfect, people will leave here and say, well, that was a great production, but that curtain was late. So there will be no but in my productions. And I mean, he really drew the line, and you paid the price if you weren't ready or, you know, not up to his expectations. But he rewarded greatly with wonderful delicatessen desserts after production.
Good. I have to ask you, Nancy, are you the queen of the meeting today? I see that tiara on your head. So, oh, those are glasses. Oh, yeah. Now I see them. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I hope you had fun talking to each other about your favorite teachers. And speaking of favorites, we have Bob Romero as our Sergeant of Arms coming to the stage right now.
And trust me, there is no crown, Rick. Okay, we've all done this little drill before, so real simple. I'll ask questions. If you don't guess the correct answer that's displayed on the screen, honor system, you pay $1. And so we'll start with this. I always like to do these little this day in history things, right? And this guy, do you know who this guy is? How about Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah, he was born on January 19th in 1809. And here are a number of facts about Edgar Allan Poe. One of these will not be correct. You have to find the incorrect piece of information. By age 3, both his parents died. He was raised by his godfather. He left college, the University of Virginia, after 8 months due to gambling debts. He was kicked out of West Point. At age 27, he married his 13-year-old cousin. He struggled with alcoholism and drug abuse. He published the poem The Raven at age 35. And he disappeared from a Baltimore party. He was found incoherent 2 days later in a gutter, and he died at age 39. Which of these is not true? Surprisingly, the last one is partially true, but it's not correct. He did disappear from a Baltimore party shortly before his second marriage. He was found incoherent 3 days later, and he died at the age of 40. A little rough time, nevermore. Anyway, let's go to something a little more positive. Of the teams remaining in the NFL playoffs, which one starts rookies on defense from both WSU and the University of Washington? Is it Buffalo, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Dallas, Jacksonville, or the New York Football Giants? Who has a Coug and a Husky rookie starting on their defense? The answer is Kansas City. They have Jalen Watson, who's a cornerback, along with Trent McDuffie, who is also a cornerback. McDuffie went to the U, and Watson went to Washington State. Dr. Trevor Green began his career as a teacher in the Yakima School District. What did he teach? English, Spanish, math, science, STEM, anatomy, or driver's education? He did go off the road once, but he actually taught Spanish, okay? Which of these positions has he not held during his career in education? Vice Principal of Wapato High School, Principal of Highland High School, Principal of Toppenish Middle School, Principal of Toppenish High School. Which one has he not held? The answer is number 1. There may have been a traffic stop in Wapato, but there was never a career stop. So we... Question: it is Yakima School Board Appreciation Month. Which of the following is not on the Yakima School Board? Is it Martha Rice, Graciela Villanueva, Norm Peterson, Ray Navarro, or Ryan Beckett? The answer is actually Norm Peterson. That's the guy on Cheers. The guy who's on the school board is Norm Walker, who's here today. And Norm, thank you for being here with us. Okay, Esmeralda Galindo became the first female student at Davis High School to achieve this. What did she do? Command the junior ROTC unit, achieve a perfect score in state vocal competition, win a district wrestling title, serve as ASB president, score 1,000 points in basketball, or did she beat the superintendent in arm wrestling? The answer is she scored 1,000 points in basketball last week. And was the first Davis Pirate to achieve that. Congratulations to her. Currently the principal at Adams Elementary, he once served as the ticket manager for the Yakima Bears. Was that Doug Kowalski, Doug Kostelecki, Doug Kaluzny, Doug Kaplicki, or Daniel Dake? The answer is it's Doug Kaplicki, and Doug actually worked for me as a ticket manager of the Yakima Bears, and Trevor is still trying to work the bugs out of all the things I taught him. The Yakima School District current word of the month is it inquisitive, imaginative, inclusive, equitable, curious, or infectious? No, if it was infectious, you'd all get sent home, and we'd be back in quarantine. But no, it's actually inquisitive is the word of the month for the Yakima School District. With that, thank you very much. Pay your dollars, and we'll turn it back to Rick.
As a readiness prompt for Superintendent Trevor Green's State of the Yakima Schools presentation, Curtiston Fitter, who's with us today, and the Yakima School District Communication Officer, suggested using school lunch trays to trigger school year memories for Yakima Rotary members. Wasn't that a great idea? Thank you, Kirsten. If, as you move towards selecting your lunch, The trays looked familiar. You used them back in the day, and I heard lots of chatter about that. And perhaps caused a smile that there wasn't cheese zombies placed on the tray. Raise your hand. You already know Trevor Green as a proud, active member of Rotary. Our club is fortunate to have Peter Finch, Superintendent of the West Valley School District, as a member, and our membership spans neighboring districts, East Valley, Natchez, Selah, Union Gap. I have believed for many, many years, particularly after serving for 12 years on the Yakima School Board under 3 former superintendents, that having a sense of the current state of your schools is an imperative, whether one maintains a current connection with a student, as a grandparent, as mentoring other children. We need to care about our schools. We all look for high graduation rates, lifelong success for our students, and selfishly hope to see their Social Security contributions show up later in our life. Trevor received his Bachelor of Arts degree from Brigham Young University, but he then became an equal opportunity degree-seeking student in the Washington University system. He earned a master's degree at Central Washington University, his superintendent's credential at Washington State University, and his doctoral degree in educational leadership and policy studies at the University of Washington, covered the waterfront. As we know and have learned, he's fluent in Spanish and has taught Spanish. I didn't realize that. And that certainly benefits the many students and parents enrolled in our district today. He is also an enrolled member of the Muskogee Creek tribe. I'm sorry. It's sticking together. Don't want to miss a word. Trevor and his wife Melanie, a librarian, paraeducator in the East Valley School District, are celebrating 30 years of marriage. They have 4 children, and their youngest currently attends Ike. They are proud grandparents with a new potential FTE, that's full-time equivalent newborn, expected to arrive soon, maybe already. Trevor, you can tell us. Before becoming Yakima superintendent, Dr. Green served students as a paraeducator, a security guard, a classroom teacher, assistant principal, and district administrator. And as Carolyn's notes to us noted, he's done all the jobs except bus driver. But, you know, somehow I feel that if you took that on Trevor, you could make those twists and turns as well. In 2013, Trevor was honored with the National Principal of the Year by the National Association of Secondary Principals, and last year he was recognized as one of the nation's 25 superintendents to watch. After a period of 2013 to 18, he was assistant superintendent in Highline School District on the west side. Trevor began his role here in 2019 and immediately began working with over 300 community members on a new strategic plan for the district. I am pleased to say that I was able to attend a number of those opening sessions and participate in seeing Trevor stay true to that strategic plan as we all went through the pandemic. We look forward to his report on the state of Yakima schools and the district's 16,040 students.
Wow, that's a lot of information, and I begrudgingly share that because I really wanted it condensed to about maybe just a paragraph, but Bunker is very tenacious, and it is what it is. But I think back on my career, and as a high school student, I was a member of the Interact Club at Davis High School, and so I attended some Rotary meetings under the leadership of Jim Wright at the time, who was a Rotarian. And I think back to that connection and then where I am now and how things come full circle. So it's just such a great honor to be here. Equally, to hear you talk about your experience in school, the mentioning of thank you, Rick, for talking about your favorite teacher and just the memories that brings back about education. Bob got it a little bit wrong. He started talking about his favorite chair in the office, so I don't know how that happened. Maybe where he spent more time than anything else. But the thing that was great is that nobody remembers your superintendent and you don't remember your principal, and that's perfectly fine because I really do enjoy being behind the scenes, and we have wonderful people that really are going to take my place up here in a few minutes, because when we talk about the state of schools centers around our students. So I'm mixing it up today. Instead of giving you a presentation and talking about bullet point by bullet point and boring you to death, I am going to give kind of a high overview, but then I'm going to turn some time over to some of our students, and they're going to come up here and share some information with you about what they're working on. So as I was thinking about this, it was like, what am I most proud of in my time back in Yakima? You know, coming back to Yakima was just a goal that I didn't think would happen. Nobody had ever returned, having been a student in Yakima, to be the superintendent. So when it happened, I really do take this seriously, and every day is just such a great honor and adventure. And as I thought about the last 3 years, because I'm starting my fourth year, halfway through my fourth year now, I recognized, boy, you know, we've just had a tremendous amount of legislative work that, you know, nobody wants to hear about legislative work, but that was a part of the position that I really had to grow in and have relationships with senators and representatives, and we have to mold the state of education and make sure that things are being funded in the proper way. So that's been something that I'm proud of, but that's not really easy to share. Something else, the faith-based partnerships we have in town. Every school is tied to one or two churches, and they meet on a quarterly basis all together in this town to discuss the state of schools and what we can do to unify and support our students. Now, that is something that I've never seen anywhere else, but I also have to share with you that was in existence before I came here. So the work that has happened to lay the groundwork for this community is fantastic, and I'm just really proud of where we've taken that to new heights. I'm really proud, though, of something that we've initiated recently, and that is a partnership with Arizona State University to allow our students to stay in school and not leave the high school setting and gain their AA degree with a certificate, again, without leaving high school. And that allows students who don't have access, transportation, don't know how to navigate a college system, to be surrounded by teachers and counselors and support services to help them navigate a system. And then also, it's free of charge. So imagine 2 years of college free of charge at this point for potentially all of our students. Just what a wonderful opportunity that is. I think about the Handle with Care program. So as you know, we have, you should know, I know that we've talked with our Chief Murray, we have a very big issue with domestic violence. And we partnered with our city and specifically with our police department to make sure that every time a student has an interaction in the home, that we are notified within 12 hours, but definitely within 24 hours that an event has taken place. Thus far in the Yakima School District, we've had over 700 incidents where there has been a domestic violence issue, and we've been able to address it when those students come back into our school the very next day, and that has been something that's just been magnificent, and it really speaks again to the partnership and to the community. Overall, in the entire area, the Handle with Care program, it's been over 1,000 students impacted by domestic violence. So it's something we still need to gather around and support, but we are doing that as a police department, as a school district, and with the services that we have in our community to provide care for those individuals. I also think about the partnership that we've just engaged in with Northwest Harvest. During the pandemic, we found that we had a food shortage issue and that we could not order the large quantities of food that we would like because we didn't have storage in the Yakima School District. There was no infrastructure capable of allowing us a wide variety and for us to store food for very long. This new partnership at their 200,000 foot capacity warehouse over on Fruitvale starts this month and will allow us to avoid the issues that we ran into before, and it's another example of a wonderful partnership opportunity. We've engaged with the Rave Foundation, the Seattle Sounders. You might notice that if you don't know what a mini pitch is, it's a very small soccer field, and we have those now at 3 schools. We have a mini pitch field at Adams, Hoover, and one recently completed, actually 2 recent completed at Barge Lincoln, and now we have 1 or 2 more slated for Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary. So this partnership with the Ray Foundation of the Seattle Sounders has allowed us to establish these neighborhood play areas, not just for students, but also then for community members after school's out, and we look forward to that continued relationship. Our early learning program had been spread out all over our entire district. We had people coming from 15 different sites to serve our littlest learners. And leadership sometimes is not about, crisis happens, right? And I think crisis does not reveal character. Or does not build character, it reveals character. And I think crisis, you need some leadership and make some of those tough decisions. And we've had to do that, or I've had to do that. One of the things that we did was consolidate our early learning to one location, and that took over, and we reconfigured Discovery Labs. So we know that was a painful part of what happened to some member of our communities, losing that small school. But now we have a place for our students to go and to be better served more effectively, knowing that only 25% of our kinders coming into our system are prepared or at what we would call that level of readiness. If we look to the west and the school district to the west, it's flipped. It's 75% come in ready to learn at that capacity. So we have a little bit of a hurdle to overcome here in Yakima, and that's a great start for us to engage the community in that way. I'll reserve some of the other comments because I do want to get to the meat of this conversation. And the thing that I'm absolutely most proud of, bar anything, is our work with Student Voice. When we went into the pandemic, we had so many things to deal with, but one thing that we did not put aside was talking to our students. And we built out what was called a Superintendent Student Advisory Council, which involved it was around over 100 students from all over our secondary schools. And we would meet online, and they had really a voice for what was happening in our system. And I love this quote. I want to share this with you. It says, "There's really no such thing as the voiceless. There are only the deliberately silenced or the preferably unheard." Once again, there is really no such thing as the voiceless. There are only the deliberately silenced or the preferably unheard. So the question is, who are we deliberately silencing, or who are we preferably not hearing? And I did not want that to happen under my tenure here as superintendent, because we know that the consumer of our product are students. And yet, we don't necessarily ask students what we should be doing to improve the system that affects them. And the ideas, the insight, and the level of effort and action in our students is amazing if we allow that to happen. So the challenge that I made with my cabinet and with our entire system is to augment, elevate that student voice. So what we engaged in was an opportunity to learn about what we do as a district. And just a very brief overview, as the superintendent, I am hired to oversee all of the what we call the means in reaching the ends. So the school board is a policy governance school board. They govern by giving me policy and establishing this is the end goal of what we need to reach. And then they hire me as the sole employee of the school board, and I'm in charge of everything within the district to reach those end goals. We had this wonderful opportunity to educate our students and really explain how our system works. And what I'd like to do is I would like to invite our 2 students to come up here right now. We have one from Davis and one from Eisenhower. And they're going to share with you something that they've been working on for, more than half a year. And this is a student voice policy. And the student voice policy is important because once you have that policy, the ends, then who is responsible for making sure that happens? This guy, right? So if they get involved in policy, they are effectively directing the work of the superintendent once it is validated, supported by the school board. So understanding this, they engaged in this student voice policy work, and they're here today to share with you the work that they're doing and actually to get some of your feedback. So this is really very exciting because this is actually roll up your sleeves. We're going to take some action. What they're sharing with you has not been seen by the school board or been approved by the school board, so you're seeing first blush. By the way, our board chair, Norm Walker, is here today. My evaluation takes place this month, so we'll see if I'm back after this. So I'm sweating bullets up here. So I'll go ahead and turn the time over to our 2 students. They will introduce themselves, and then they'll take over. You'll see me over here. I'll be rubbing a rabbit's foot, hoping everything goes well. But you turn things over to our students, and you're just going to be amazed. And please share what grade you're in as well when you start. Thank you.
Please.
Thank, thank you, Dr. Green, and thank you, Rotarians. It is an honor to be here, and I know for a couple of you, this will be your second time hearing it, so thank you even more. My name is Ezra Rotman, and I'm a 10th grader at Davis High School.
My growth spurt hasn't hidden yet, so it's a little too high for me. My name is Luana Huang, and I'm a 10th grader at Eisenhower. And today we are representing the students intern team of the Yakima School District. We've been working as a program for 7 months to represent student voice and improve our district as a whole. Today, we're going to be presenting to you the project that we put a lot of time and effort into. A comprehensive board policy that aims to enhance and empower student voice in all levels of the Yakima School District. We're going to present to you our policy, and then at the end, we'll ask you to write down your thoughts on the half-pagers that we provided at your tables.
To begin, we'd first like to give you a little introduction of ourselves and our team. Though I know there are only 2 of us right now, but there are 3 other members of our team who sadly couldn't be here today. After that, we introduce our team. We'd like to then introduce our policy and dive into that. So our policy is broken down into 4 main sections. The first is the purpose and preamble. This section explains why the policy is necessary, the responsibilities and opportunities that the YSD is embracing by approving this policy, and it finishes with our definition of student voice. The second section, the principles, declares foundational statements as well as a few goals of our policy. The third and largest and most important part of our policy is the practices. This section outlines the actions that will be enforced when the policy is passed. The last section, the targeted outcomes, are the reasons and goals for our policy.
So this is our team pictured here from left to right. We have Ezra Rotman, Valeria Garza, Dakari Lewis, myself, and Connor Lincoln. Our team works to lead policy initiatives, represent student voice in high-level leadership and administration meetings, and support the district-wide student voice councils, which amplifies the voice of diverse student members in advancing youth-led projects.
Our policy, which we call it Student Voice Policy, is the biggest initiative that we've been working on for the past almost 7 months. Before we dive into specifics, we want to briefly mention how the Yakima School District works in governing policy, the board of directors, and the superintendent. As Dr. Green mentioned, it runs on policy governance, which basically means that the board of directors approves policy and then monitors the superintendent, the board's sole employee, in ensuring that the policy is followed and implemented.
Since the board is made of community members, it does not have the operational and day-to-day knowledge of every issue. So it delegates the performance of the policy to the superintendents for implementation and then holds them accountable for making sure that the district is meeting the targets set out by the policy and accompanying benchmarks.
We began working with students in January 2022 from the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, which Dr. Green covered, and we began crafting a draft framework policy based on research and model work from across the nation. What we as students have developed would be a first-of-its-kind policy in Washington State and one of only a few in the nation. We would be leading the way in putting student voice at the center of all of the work we do in the district. We wouldn't only be speaking to student voices, but we would be uplifting and acting on student voice. This policy is completely drafted and based on feedback, and work done by students. Other districts in Washington and across the nation use our policy and model as an example for what student voice can and should look like. We are taking this working draft of policy to multiple community stakeholders, including both student groups and staff groups from both high schools and middle schools. Once completed, we will work with the board and district leaders to approve and finalize our policy. As a continuation of the amazing work our board and district leadership has started, we hope to outline a comprehensive and inclusive vision for student voice in the Yakima School District.
So we provided you with copies of the full policy at your tables, and the policy is split into a few main sections. The purpose on page 1, followed by the principles, then the practices our policy commits to on pages 2 through 4, and then finally caped by our targeted outcomes. So the first part of the policy, the purpose, it outlines our 3 key points. First, we, as in the Yakima School District, recognize that student voice is necessary to succeed. The district is framed around students, and the person who knows best how to serve the student is the students.
Secondly, the district recognizes the unique responsibilities and opportunities of this policy as it is a first in the Pacific Northwest, which means that our efforts here expand beyond our district into the region in setting new norms for encouraging, supporting, and institutionalizing student voice across our educational community.
Third, it states our definition. Student voice defines the authentic communication of all students' perspectives and ideas, where students are empowered and student voice structures are implemented by the whole school community to advance educational equity for generations to come. This is the definition of student voice that was written completely by our team and has since been accepted by the school board to become the district's official definition of student voice, and is the foundation and core of our policy that we'll be looking into moving forward.
The principal section of our policy is broken down into 6 main points. First, both staff and students are responsible for student voice. Second, we want to ensure that we value open communication, that we promote respectful dialogue, and that we encourage students to learn to represent themselves. Third, we believe that decisions shouldn't be made without students because students are important individual leaders that give valuable insights and are directly affected by decisions. Fourth, we understand that students should be able to have meaningful engagement with staff on educational issues in established institutions that we define in our policy as student voice structures. Fifth, we understand that everyone is involved in building a student's characters and skills, and that everyone has a responsibility to equitably empower student voice. Finally, we believe that educational equity should not we believe that educational equity is essential to student voice. Students should not only know how decisions are made, they should know what decisions are currently being made, and they should be able to communicate their voice on those decisions. By centering our principles around a quality educational experience for students, we are creating transparency between students, teachers, and administrators.
Our practices are broken down into 5 baskets: board directors, district leadership, school leadership, leadership and development, and teaching and learning. First, the board directors are encouraged to show up at regular school forums planned and attended by the superintendents, improve transparency in their decision-making for students, and directly engage with student voices.
Second, the superintendent will converse with students and improve student-focused programs across a variety of forums, which will allow for students to exchange ideas on district-wide issues. The district will in turn maintain a student-led program that supports student voice, and those students will create a newsletter that communicates new ideas relevant to student voice for a safe and equitable school environment.
Third, students will be able to work with staff to collect, analyze, and share kinds of data that can help guide decision-making. School staff will ensure diverse students can work with staff in committees to advance positive change, and that students can provide confidential feedback on school issues and practices too.
Fourth, the superintendent will expand on deepening after-school activities to actively promote and create more equitable experiences where schools are safe, creative environments. All students have the right to an education that intentionally develops their character. All students within student government will be provided training in becoming effective leaders, and they'll gain skills that further develop their understanding of leadership.
Fifth, teachers will receive training on trust building, student-centered instructional skills, and create equitable mechanisms for students to give ideas and feedback on their learning environments. Professional learning communities, PLC, will work on integrating best practices on student voice in the classroom, and administrators too will be encouraged and equipped to engage on student feedback. And since we're here at the Rotary today, we wanted to hint that this policy will positively impact businesses in the region by equipping students with a wide array of skills and opportunities. Our desired outcomes are the reasons behind creating this policy after all. These 5 outcomes are the goals that we are striving towards through the student voice policy. First, a better culture of inclusion among students can educate students to value diversity and appreciate different cultures and identities. For example, within customer service.
Second, a better culture of communication between students and staff will equip students with the experience-based skills of showing and understanding knowledge and hands-on ideas.
Empowering diverse student leaders will enhance student confidence on levels that ASBs are typically not capable of, empowering students to embrace risks and change in uncertain movements.
Fourth, opportunities for student leadership and creativity will develop in-demand soft skills that businesses expect in a new generation of workers and entrepreneurs.
We want to thank you all for listening to our presentation and letting us present our student voice policy to you. At this time, we would love to hear any feedback you may have. And at your tables, we have feedback forms on which you can share your thoughts and impressions of the policy. So make sure to fill those out, and we'd be very grateful for your perspective. We do, however, have a short period of time, so we're going to have to hand the mic back to Dr. Green for general YSD questions. And Ezra and I will be available afterwards for any questions or additional follow-ups. Thank you.
I've invited them to stay up here in case there are questions for follow-up. But it's just amazing to think of when you're talking about what you were, or I think about what I was doing in the 10th grade. Honestly, we were a 3-year high school at Davis. I just transferred from my second high school, and I was, one, avoiding my nemesis who was trying to beat me up every first period. I was hiding in my Spanish class behind the person in front of me trying to not get called on because I didn't know how to respond at that point, and then I ended up teaching Spanish. And doing other things that that certainly don't elevate to the level of what we're seeing from our students here in Yakima. So I want you to know that when we presented this, when they presented to our business community that we hold within our own district, we meet quarterly. One of the adults that had come and seen the policy, which again is on your table, said, "Well, this is really interesting, but the language in here is just so elevated, and it really speaks to the way that adults speak, and I just don't think that students would understand this." And we turned to the two individuals here and said, "Well, who wrote this policy?" And they were part of the team, and then we had them ask what grade they're in, of course, 10th grade. So, when we talk about what students can do and how they can rise to a level of expectation that often we don't possess because we kind of think a little bit differently in what kids can accomplish, if we turn that over, then we can certainly see things from a different perspective. And this policy, what's great about it is completely 100% student generated. So this is not what I think needs to happen in the Yakima School District. I'm sitting there listening very intently because these now become eventually benchmarks of achievement for our district and how we interact with each other from adults to students and whatnot. And so it's just really important to think about the impact of policy and how that plays out in our system. And what I'm imagining, as Ezra and Luana has shared, this is something that I believe will ripple across our area and put that student voice right back at the top where it should be. So I'm going to share something with you. It's going to make me a little bit uncomfortable, so sit up because you're like, okay, he's going to be uncomfortable. What's he uncomfortable about? In the Yakima School District, we have 11 different bargaining units. So we have 11 different unions. So we have 2,000 employees, 11 different unions, teachers unions, paraeducators, we have bus drivers. Oh, by the way, the mention about the bus drivers earlier, we are hiring. So if you want to be a bus driver, please. Food service workers, just across the gamut, we have all of these unions that then come to the table and they bargain the effects of the pandemic, or we bargain every 3 years for an extended contract. And the thing that we never do, or the thing that we don't have in the Yakima School District, the thing that we don't have in education, is we do not have a bargaining unit for students. We don't have a place at any time for our students to be elevated to a level where their voice is front and center. And I think that, it feels like we tend to hide under these adult wants and frame it as this is what's best for kids. But what do we not ask, or who do we not ask? We're not having that conversation with the students themselves. So what we're seeking to do in the Yakima School District is to elevate the student perspective to a level that I've never seen as a student or as an educator, and you've heard my history. And then I know that, if we're able to do that, we're going to create a place where belonging truly matters. And I think to the words of, I think it was Pablo Picasso, every child is born an artist. The problem is, how do you remain an artist as you become an adult? In education, every student comes in at that beginning level so excited to learn, to grow, to achieve. And as we progress through the system and we don't hear their voice, it becomes less and less exciting for them to be a part. And then we try to think about, how do we engage students? How do we get them to where we think that they need to be? And again, the answer is right to my right here. It's speaking to the students themselves, and this policy is something that will be put in place once it's finalized, and then it will become part of our regular operating procedures and something that is then systematized across all of our buildings. And we have students in 29 facilities across the area. That's including from our highest, most advanced to students that are incarcerated. But this will affect all of those 29 different locations and how we interact with our students. So please do take a few moments and do give a little bit of feedback if you would. And you can do that while I'm finishing up here. I think I have 2 more minutes. I'm going to use the very end. And I guess what I'd like to do before maybe I'll end here, but are there any questions that you would have for me at this time or for our students up here? Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for presenting this program today, the students and Dr. Green as well. I have a couple of quick questions. They're all softball questions, Dr. Green. So anyway, what percentage of the Yakima area students are at grade level in reading and grade level in math? And if these numbers are not good, what specific programs in addition to dual languages are you implementing to improve those numbers?
Yeah, so what I would love to do is, and I'm going to ask Kristen Fitter, who's here, we're going to take those questions from you, and I'm going to get those answers, and then I'm going to report them back here so that we have the accurate numbers. Is every child up at grade level? In those different topics, let me get you those numbers so I'm very clear. And we always know that there are students that are behind, so it's not 100%. But what we do have to lean on certainly is what was mentioned by Bunker Frank earlier, and that was that strategic plan with those community commitments. And I'm sure you don't remember, the last time I was here and speaking in front of you, we had just finalized our strategic plan. That was 2020, and that was distributed. So those are the goals for the next 6 years with the plans of implementation on how to reach the levels of achievement that we need, which is every student. So for me, I just want you to know, it is in no wise acceptable to have a student that is not achieving at grade level or not being successful. It's akin, if you have an 89% graduation rate, is it okay to take 100 students on a field trip and only come back with 89? Definitely not, right? So it's 100% is 100% is 100%. The challenge is how to get there. And what we see happening is part of this student voice process is going to also change our system in a way that students are heard and that we're doing a better job at being responsive, because I have to put in the systems to meet what the requirements are of the ends. So please do share that. I'm not evading that question. I just want to get you accurate information, and we will report back out on that probably in written form. Yes?
I so appreciate this. This is such really super incredible work.
Hang on a second. Did you President Walker, did you?
My question is actually going to be addressed to you, which is, are you incorporating student voice into Trevor's evaluation? And going forward, how might that happen? Because that really does elevate your voice to have you held accountable.
Well, and I'll answer that, because it's not, because student voice is not part of any policy right now. As was shared, there is no student voice policy in the state of Washington, and there are very few in the country, so there is no motivation, inclination to have that as part of any process of feedback on the superintendent's evaluation. So no, not yet, but once it becomes part of the policy, I could see us heading there. And I want you to know how challenging it is to put yourself in a position. I mean, I could go on the way that superintendents have gone on from time and eternity and not have this become something that you're talking about. The way that you're thinking is how I like that, because that's what I want. I want that accountability at this level, because the students need to have a say. But it's also something that's very uncomfortable because you have to produce, right? If you ever want to know what somebody really thinks of you, go to an elementary school and ask a third grader, because they will tell you 100%. An eighth grader, ruthless, all right? So if you want to know, the students are going to tell you, so just be prepared to act on that. So I really love that idea. I see that the band is playing. The hook is coming. So if you would, please, I hope that we're invited back at some point to report out. And if I could just have you give one big hand again to our students. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Luana. Luana.
Well, for those of us who've gone through high school, I have to think you might be rather impressed. Do you remember thinking along those lines when you were in high school? I have to admit I was not. So it's good that they are, and looking forward to seeing the policy implemented and how it works out, and to the benefit of the students and faculty and superintendent. So hopefully we'll hear more about it. Okay, I know we're running a little bit late, so I'll be very quick. Today, Trevor, we're going to donate to Polio Plus campaign in honor of your appearance today. I appreciate that. Next week, we have Tom Tochterman. He is going to talk about animal protection in Africa. Extinction is forever. I think he's on a rhino preservation effort there. He is also very knowledgeable about glass recycling. And some people have asked me about recycling glass in Yakima. He's going to stay after the meeting next week, and if anybody is interested in the effort that's going on in Lake Chelan, Rotary has a glass recycling project there that has been successful. And if you want to find out how it happened and how it might happen here, possibly, stick around after next week's meeting. After that is Jesse Weinberry, the making of MLK Junior Holiday in Washington State. It's going to be a big meeting. It's going to be a big event. Jesse's going to be in town for a number of days. He'll be visiting, I think, some high schools, Eisenhower Davis, I think, maybe. But make sure you make that meeting. And then the next week after that, we have a Mount Rainier and climate change conversation with Jeff Antonellis Lapp from YVC. 2 meetings, academic scholarships with David Brown. David's back there. Follow him to wherever you're going to meet, maybe right there. And then also World Community Service, Dottie Hildebrand, if she is here, right over here. All right. Thank you very much. Great meeting, great program. Thank you.